As war grows, those who want peace for Israelis and Palestinians face harrowing test. The war in the Middle East has left some peace builders in the region and in the US struggling. Some are vowing to double down on their efforts to promote peace, while others are questioning the goal. We know deep down inside that violence isn't the alternative, says Shiri Arian, Executive Director of American Friends of the Parents Circle, Families Forum. Peace is something messy, it's fragile and even harder to maintain, says Gilly Getz, chair of the American Friends of Combatants for Peace. Why Israel's siege of Gaza is legal under international law. Test. Israel's siege of Gaza has drawn the ire of many, including lawmakers in the United States and abroad, but it does not violate the law of armed conflict or international law. Sieges are not prohibited under either the law of armed conflict or public international law, but there are limitations. That violence isn't the alternative, says Shiri Arian, Executive Director of American Friends of the Parents Circle, Families Forum. Peace is something messy, it's fragile and even harder to maintain, says Gilly Getz, chair of the American Friends of Combatants for Peace. Hamas has used civilians as human shields, placing legitimate military targets in and around residential and commercial centers as a way to either deter Hamas adversaries from attacking in the first place or to deflect blame if such an attack results in collateral damage. Israel is not bound by any of these sources of law, and even if it were, context matters. Civilians are not Israel's primary target of its current siege, and all Hamas must do to end its people's suffering is return the Israeli hostages it kidnapped. Israel might consider allowing for safe passage corridors for civilians in Gaza to access humanitarian relief, but there is no hard requirement under international law for it to do so. Pence says, "I did my duty that day," on January 6, 2021. Former Vice President Mike Pence spoke with voters in New Hampshire on Friday, defending his actions on January 6, 2021 and arguing that his experience in the previous administration made him the most qualified for the Republican nomination. Pence acknowledged that the climate is changing but rebuked the Paris Climate Accords which the Trump administration pulled the United States out of. Isn't the alternative, says Shiri Arian, Executive Director of American Friends of the Parents Circle, Families Forum. Peace is something messy, it's fragile and even harder to maintain, says Gilly Getz, chair of the American Friends of Combatants for Peace. He proposed that his administration would follow a market-based strategy and not introduce green energy subsidies. Centers as a way to either deter Hamas adversaries from attacking in the first place or to deflect blame if such an attack results in collateral damage. Pence praised Operation Warp Speed, the government program that sped up COVID vaccine research and production, and called the nurses and doctors who worked in hospitals prior to vaccine availability heroes. He also said that Democratic state and municipal governments went too far in implementing public health orders. Turn the Israeli hostages it kidnapped. Pence is the first vice president to run against the president he served under since John Nance Garner ran against Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1940. Law for it to do so. He has struggled in the polls, staying well behind his former running mate,